Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 35 of Driver Seat Blog Radio. As always, I'm your host, David G. Firestone. I want to apologize for phoning in last week's episode. I had way too many things going on. I have quite a few things going on in September that I don't have the capacity to push back. So I had to move my YouTube production day for my other YouTube channel, DGF 2099, to the last weekend of August. Coupled with that, that's something I had been working on for this podcast and that I hoped to do this week blew up in my face, and I already had way too much on my plate to begin with. I had no choice but to turn things over to my text-to-speech, who will be referred to as Announcer About 5000 for last week. Also, if I'm feeling sick or I have another situation where I run out of time, Announcer About 5000 will take over for me. So, and I do have a sore throat, so I'm going to be drinking a bit more water than normal. So just a heads up. So let's get back to TV ratings and let's talk about NBC Sports. Now, I've been following television ratings provided by Adam Stern, who is a great resource for racing news and info and, more importantly, television numbers. I've been following the numbers for both IndyCar and NASCAR and NBC, and they're very telling as to how bad NBC Sports approach is. Now, Fox broadcast the first 19 races in 2022, and here are some numbers for you. I should also mention that I could not find any information on NHRA that was as complete as this, so I apologize for that. But anyway, Fox broadcast 19 races in 2022. Here are the numbers. 12 races were on Fox. The races on Fox had an average rating of 2.58 with an average of 4.561 million viewers. Fox Sports 1 had 7 races, which had an average rating of 1.29 and 2.218 million viewers. When NASCAR moved to NBC, now, again, Fox is actually doing well with their coverage. Plus, they have the Daytona 500, so their numbers are going to be, their averages are going to be higher, so to speak. But when NASCAR moved to NBC, this was the first year they'd done it without NBCSN, as they'd killed off the channel on January 1st in favor of Peacock. Great move, guys. Now, granted, it was a terribly run channel, but even so, it takes them down below Fox as a sports powerhouse. There are 9 races held at the time of recording. I'm recording this on Sunday night. The Darlington numbers have not come out, but I can't imagine being on USA they're going to be anything more than what they are. So they were on. So at the time of recording, 9 races were held. 8 of them were either on USA or CNBC. We'll get to that in a few minutes. And only one, Indianapolis, was on NBC. It should be noted that the Daytona race was supposed to be on NBC, but due to rain delays, coverage was forced onto CNBC on Monday. Now, granted, I don't know why you have a race on a Sunday morning at 10 a.m., especially when you could move it to like 2 o'clock when there's no real like competition in terms of major sports, but thus, and only one race on NBC drew a high rating with it. Was the Indianapolis Road Course, which drew a 2.05 rating with 3,373,000 million viewers. The cable average for the other 8 races at the time of recording was a 1.41 rating with 2,229,000 viewers. Now, Fox lost an average of a 1.29 rating and 2.92 million viewers with when they had races on cable as opposed to broadcast. Now, NBC lost an average of a 0.56 rating and 878,000 viewers. When there is no real competition, it makes sense to have NASCAR and NBC whenever possible. This can and will generate ratings and revenue for NASCAR and its team as partners. Sorry, I'm really off tonight if it's not obvious, but I want to give you guys a good podcast. So, when NASCAR is on USA, IndyCar almost always gets the NBC slot. While this seems to be a good move, it should be noted that IndyCar doesn't have nearly the fan base that NASCAR does. The ratings back this up. Of the 15 races IndyCar has run at the time of recording, I've yet to see the Portland numbers. I can't believe they're going to be any better than what they are now, especially with the college football premiere. The 12 races on NBC had a point... Hold on. Yeah, I'm not feeling well tonight. I'm going to power through, though. Okay. Of the 15 races IndyCar has run, 12 were on NBC, 2 were on USA, and 1 was on Peacock streaming in the United States. We'll get back to Peacock later. The 12 races on NBC have had an average of 0.5 rating and 1,246,000 viewers. The 2 races on USA had a .023 rating and 354,000 viewers, and a .034 rating and 553,000 viewers respectively. These numbers are not good. With the potential for 3 to 4 million viewers per telecast, I have no earthly idea why you would put IndyCar over NASCAR in this situation. Now, I've been worried about where the market is headed. I was worried about the idea of a streaming service only race. I didn't think it was going to do a good number. But if anything, I screwed up because I gave Peacock too much credit. Now, in July, on a summer afternoon with no real competition outside of NASCAR, NBC put the Honda Indy Toronto exclusively on Peacock. Outside of testing the waters, there's really no logical reason for this. Again, this took place on July 17th. There was no real competition from anyone outside of NASCAR. It was a great race that pretty much nobody saw. And I say that because the race did so badly in terms of viewership, a rating couldn't be generated. And when I say that, I mean this is literally below a 0.0 rating. I don't even think you could have gotten maybe more than 50,000 viewers, if that. IndyCar is mad about this, and I can't say that I blame them. The fans are mad, and I can't say that I blame them. And again, I'm going to say the same thing I said prior to the race. You have the capacity. Why not put it on CNBC? What, you're going to generate ratings on that channel with your current lineup? It's not like there's anything of note on CNBC on Sundays. Again, I've never in my life been so desperately bored that I felt, I should watch the Consumer News and Business channel. Like, do you understand that there's literally a 7-hour video on YouTube of paint drying that I would rather watch than CNBC on Sundays? Now, why is this all important? Well, NASCAR's deal with NBC is coming up for renewal sooner rather than later. They're not happy with this, and I don't blame them. And I think right now they have more competition because I think Turner might be making... ESPN, I know for a fact, is making a bid. I'd be shocked if Turner didn't make a bid. And I think Turner would be very well advised to have a sports channel at this point because they have baseball, they have basketball. Why not have a sports channel? NBC Sports, on the other hand, is dying a slow death. I would even take CBS at this point. That's how desperate I am. And they've made SRX look good in terms of their production. But NBC Sports, not just the channel, but the sports division of NBC is dying a slow, painful, self-inflicted death. They really have nothing at this point, and they're about to lose a lot more. Unless they make some massive changes, I don't think we're ever going to see racing on NBC again, which I think a lot of fans would agree might not be the worst thing in the world. Okay, so I'm going to stop talking about racing ratings. We're going to talk about professional wrestling ratings because I'm a fan of AEW. I like wrestling in general, but I do watch AEW. It's not for casual fans, which can be irritating sometimes, but I do like AEW in general. Now, while I like it, there are some things that make no sense, and from time to time, there are some things that spit in the face of all logic. So, let's go back to the August 24th edition of AEW Dynamite, specifically 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The match in question was Jon Moxley, former Dean Ambrose, versus CM Punk, with Moxley going over the interim champion, Punk the champ who had to relinquish due to injury, to unify the AEW World Championship. After a match that went just shy of 3 minutes, Moxley won the championship and the titles were unified. An injury angle was set up where on the next episode of Dynamite, Moxley came out, threw an open contract into the ring. Punk came in and signed it, thus setting up the match for AEW All Out, which took place on Sunday. And at the end of this match, on Sunday, CM Punk re-won the championship, but we'll get to that in a few minutes. But looking at the numbers is kind of amazing. From 8 p.m. to 9 p.m., in anticipation of the match, Dynamite was doing well over 1 million viewers, which is actually pretty good for Dynamite. They struggle to generate. They don't have as many viewers as WWE, but the upside is that their fans are much more dedicated and supportive, which is a good thing. I'm not saying that you shouldn't have supportive fans. In fact, I agree with it 100%. But from 8 to 9, Dynamite was averaging over 1 million viewers. The match itself had almost 1.2 million viewers. And then as soon as the next segment began at 9:15, between 9:15 and 9:30, AEW lost 211,000 viewers, which is about 17%. 17 to 18%. Okay, how do you justify that? How do you justify that? How do you set your show up in such a way that with half an hour to go, you literally lose 18% of your audience? How do you justify that? Then you have another fact that realistically, the match shouldn't have happened. And Tony Khan, the owner of AEW, has no idea what he's doing. Why do I say that? Well, again, at the time of recording, there was a pay-per-view on September 4th where a rematch took place of the match on the 24th with CM Punk going over in Chicago, his hometown. Let me ask a sincere question. Was there any reason that the match on the 24th either A had to have a legitimate conclusion, or B had to happen at all? I would understand the match taking place if, like, you had the whole injury angle thing, but the match was stopped due to ref stoppage because of Punk's injury, and then you did everything the way you did it. It would work, and it would make sense. Nothing got resolved on the 24th. The open contract thing took place. Or not even the open contract thing, but just a challenge was issued, and Punk accepted, and they had the match on the way it happened on Sunday night. Okay, I would be behind that. But the fact that the match had a legitimate conclusion proves how stupid Tony Khan really is. Instead of having the unification match with Punk going over on the pay-per-view in Chicago, and CM Punk in Chicago, he sold out the United Center on a rumor he was going to be there. And the AEW even said that. Why not just have the unification match in Chicago at the main event of the pay-per-view, do a big number, and send the people home happy? Like, if you were having just a random UFC match for an interim championship, and you've got a ESPN one, an ESPN show on Friday and a pay-per-view on Sunday, why would you give the unification match away for free? I don't get this logic at all. But this comes from an issue that has been plaguing AEW. Because Tony Khan, the owner and booker of AEW, who was also the Wrestling Observer newsletter promoter of the year in 2019, 2020, and 2021, and booker of the year in 2020 and 21, seems to have no idea what he's doing when it's come to booking. Because again, you could have saved yourselves a few steps, drawn more people to your pay-per-view, and still sent the fans home happy regardless. Add to the fact that from what I've been hearing in terms of news and rumors and things going on behind the scenes, he's clearly under the influence of something. That doesn't even... I've lived in a frat house when I was in college. It was basically a frat house. I talked about it on my other YouTube channel. I've seen people fucked up on various substances. He seems to be messed up on something. Furthermore, there are a lot of in-ring mistakes and botches as well, which, again, you should have people in charge who could prevent this. That's why WWE's product is a lot more polished than yours. And also, because AEW is for hardcore fans instead of casual wrestling fans, it doesn't really help. And I really want to like AEW, but with everything going on, it makes it very difficult, if not impossible at times. So, with that out of my system, we're going to take a break. I'm going to talk about a few other things that bother me. I'll be right back. So I'm back from my break. I still feel like shit, but we're going to move on to our next topic. I'm an NHRA fan, and I like to play video games. For the last several months, the NHRA has been advertising their new game, NHRA Championship Drag Racing Speed for All. I've been interested in this game, but I wasn't sure if I wanted to pick it up on launch day, which I usually don't. But after reading the reviews on Steam since the game has come out, I can say I'm never going to buy this. When the reviews are overwhelmingly negative, where complaints include lag input issues, no menus, boring gameplay, and numerous glitches, sorry, not the kind of game that I want to play. I don't mind a game being janky around the edges, but when it's like as bad as people are saying it is, like it's even been compared to a mobile game, which for a console release is not a good thing. Sorry, not interested. But I've heard some of the issues that were coming up, and I was watching some of the streams of this game on Twitch. The game looks mediocre at best. I'm sorry. But there are some real issues. Now, while a lot of the glitches don't really matter... sorry. Some make the game look really bad. A major example of this is that the NHRA and whoever it was that made this game, I'm not going to look them up, they weren't able to get the manufacturer licenses. So Chevy, Dodge, and Ford and Toyota aren't there. So everyone is literally running the exact same car, whether it be John Force Chevy or Bob Tasca Ford. So all the cars are pretty much the same, except for paint jobs, which is kind of... No. Part of the reason that racing games are fun is if you're having trouble with one car, you could switch to a different car with different settings and you could do better, or sometimes you can do worse. The third is a look at the parachutes. I have two Top Fuel parachutes, well, one Top Fuel, one Funny Car in my collection, And in the game, they look like they're 30 feet tall. They're 12 by 12. But one of the glitches, and I think this is completely inexcusable, is something that I've never seen any other racing game, or hell, any other race, whether we're talking camel races, auto races, foot races, horse races, dog races, pig races. Every race of any kind since the beginning of time has had one thing that the NHRA video game does not: a visible finish line. Every stream that I've ever seen of this game, you literally race until the game tells you to pull your parachutes. Whoever it was that programmed this, how do you not just program a white line over the finish line or a yellow line? I mean, this is the same technology the NFL has been using to mark first down lines since 1998. And I would say that if you had it, you could have a thing in the settings where you can either choose to enable it or disable it. You know, I'm not saying you shouldn't have that, but to just say, well, we're going to do it this way and you're going to like it and we're not doing anything, it's just no. If you wanted to make the game realistic looking, which a lot of these racing games do, that's fine. But you've got to understand that you're playing a video game here, and it doesn't always feel the need to be realistic, especially when you don't know where the finish line is magically. You need to know where the finish line is in any racing game. Show us the finish line. And I don't get how these programmers who expect you to pay money for this were not only not able to fix obvious visual issues, but just to ignore them like what you're showing is acceptable. I can maybe justify the lack of manufacturers, but the lack of a finish line is completely inexcusable. It needs to be patched at some point, though I doubt it will be. So I'm going to complain about one more thing. I'm in a grouchy mood this week, I'm not going to lie. But this is something that's been going on for some time now, and I think it's completely inexcusable too. There's this new trend going on called quiet quitting. It's an employment trend, and it means not doing work beyond what you were hired to do and beyond what you're paid for. And it's used as a way of changing the working world from inside. Others see it as a way of helping out a work-life balance. But this is very flawed, and it's the latest trend of young people thinking that everything revolves around them. Having worked in a number of different companies and different various types of employment, the reality is more and more young people are entering the workforce with no understanding about traditional work ethic. And this stems from the fact that society today has made it very hard for kids to fail, no matter how inevitable failure in the real world is. We've raised a generation of kids who think that everyone around them has to help them succeed and find themselves. A generation of kids who thinks that standards, expectations, and accountability should be replaced in favor of a I should be judged on what's best for me style. Here's what these kids don't realize. When you get a job with a company, you are seen for the most part as a cog in a machine. And as I've seen quite a few times over the years, cogs that make a lot of noise get replaced. Cogs that don't work as well as other cogs get replaced. Your boss is under zero obligation to care for you or your needs. He has to focus on what's best for the company over the individual. And most jobs and most places of employment follow this logic. The cog that doesn't work can be quickly and easily replaced. And if you want to go about this, go right ahead. Let me give you some sound and trusted advice. If you don't want to work hard, someone else will. If you don't want to do more than the minimum, someone else will. If you don't want to pick up slack, someone else will. And at the end of the day, when it comes time for promotions or raises, you won't get anything, but someone else will. Another thing kids don't see to advance is career advancement is a privilege, not a right. Raises are a privilege, not a right. If I'm the boss of a company and you come in, you do the most minimal amount of work possible, you don't want to pick up other people's slack, you want to do only what's best for you, don't bother coming to me asking me for a raise. Don't bother coming to me expecting a promotion because you're not going to get it. I'm going to give it to the guy next to you who's working hard, who picks up the slack, who does more than the minimum. And there are many, many bosses in this country and in this world who agree with me. The new hire doesn't get to tell the boss with 20 years experience how to do their job. And also, when layoffs come to most companies, the go-getters and the hard workers are somewhat more safe. The laziest and unmotivated people, gone. The slackers get pushed out the door while the go-getters stay. And if you want to understand why it works this way, understand this logic. It's all about how the company sees you as opposed to how you see yourself. Now, you might be thinking you're doing a good thing and you're doing what's best for the world around you, but if your company sees you as a lazy slacker who doesn't want to do more than what they're paid to do, and you've got someone else who's a go-getter and who's going to work hard, that's just the reality of it. Stop admiring yourself in the mirror and start asking yourself how your employers see you. And if you want to quiet quit, be my guest, but you'd better be prepared to be either stuck where you are or unemployed. The term that I use for this is separating the silver from the ore. You separate the valuable materials from the expendable materials. If you want to be silver, I applaud you. If you want to be ore, best of luck to you. Okay, I've complained enough about this. I'm going to stop complaining for next week. I'm going to talk about a fire suit next week. I'm Dave Firestone. Leave a like, comment, share, and subscribe. And I'll see you next week for episode 36 of Driver Suit Blog Radio.